My name is Xavier Montoya, and today I'll be giving my multicultural speech for speech 1315, Professor Cora Williams. I'm going to go ahead and count off my audience members.
1,
2,
3,
4, 5,
6.
Okay, so now we can start. So isn't it crazy, guys, to know that a few hundred years ago, our civilization was completely different? So throughout the lands of Mexico and some parts of the United States, the land was controlled by Mesoamerican empires. Today I'm going to be describing the Aztec people and their cultures, and also the Aztec Empire. So, some of the first signs in history of the Aztec people were the Mexica people. The Mexica people are a group of people who scattered the lands from northern and some parts of the United States down into what is now known as the Valley of Mexico. So once they found a permanent settlement, they decided to name their city Tenochtitlan. So Tenochtitlan was their base city that the Mexica decided to call their home. So to build up an empire, what they needed to do was create alliances with their neighbor states. So what they did was they created an alliance with two other neighboring states, and by doing this, they created what is called a triple alliance. So now this triple alliance was the basis of the empire of the Aztec people, and the three cities that they were founded on became the foundation of the empire. So now that the empire started to grow, they rose to control eventually 38 provinces. So as an empire, the Tenochtitlan city, which the Mexica people ruled, steadily grew to become the center of the Aztec civilization. So that one city grew above the other neighboring ones to become the mainland. So to keep the people that were in power into power, they decided to do what is called intermarriage. So intermarriage is where royalty would marry other royalty just to keep that family in power. And the other people in the civilization were common people, just regular people who had regular jobs, and then also slaves. So during the time of the Aztec Empire, it was very similar to how it was now. They had very common jobs. They had merchants, they had warriors, they had athletes, they had kings, they had slaves, just very common jobs and titles that made a stable empire and stable community that was throughout the land. So the people of the empire had access to a vast majority of different resources. So not only did they have a high diet of just maize, which is corn, but they also had beans, they had rice, the animals that ravaged the land. But since they had conquered so much land and so many provinces, they had access to ocean. So that means they had marine life, and they also had, just ocean diets and everything as well. But mostly it consisted of maize just because it was closer to where they were at. So the people of the Aztec, according to the writings of Michael Smith in A Strategic Providence, the empire had sacrificed 80,000 people within 7-year span. So from 1446 to 1453, this was a period where the Aztec people had starvation, they had a drought, and they also had an early frost. And so the people believed that the gods were angry at them, so they kept sacrificing people. And so whenever the bountiful rain came back and the harvest grew back, they thought that they had successfully pleased the gods, and so they stopped doing it so excessively. According to the National Geographic article called Unburying the Aztec, the way that the priests and the royalty would sacrifice the people is that they would lay down the prisoners and they would stab the prisoners and rip out their hearts, and they would grab the beating heart that was still beating and throw it into the sacramental fire. And then not only that, they would let the blood of the prisoners roll down the steps so that they believed it was payment to the gods in exchange for good weather, no disease, and just a good life in general. And just like everything comes up, everything must come down. So when the downfall of the Aztec Empire occurred, it continued in a domino effect. So when the Spaniards came to the land in 1519, they made an alliance with an enemy empire that was north of the Aztec people. And with their help, they helped defeat the Aztec Empire. So, through the continuous battle and the new technology that the Spaniards brought, like the cannon and the gun, they were able to conquer the land, and Spaniards conquered them, laying the end of the Aztec Empire in 1521. Yeah. So, that's my speech, and I will go ahead and count off on my audience.
Awesome.
1,
2,
3,
4, 5,
6.
Okay. Alright, so this is the question and answer part of the presentation. I will now answer a few questions for the audience today. Alright, so can I get the first question?
Why did none of the Aztecs who were being sacrificed in this rise up against the Mexico people?
So it wasn't the Aztecs that were getting sacrificed, it was the prisoners, like the enemy empire.
Oh.
And all the tribes that rebelled against the empire, those are the prisoners that they sacrificed. They didn't sacrifice their own people.
Oh.
Alright?
But basically, they were their own people since they were still human.
No.
Okay.
Can I have another question?
what motivated you to choose this topic?
I really admired the Aztec people since that is a part of heritage of mine. And also I watched this movie called Apocalypto, and it really was very similar to the Aztec. It was actually based off that. Inspired, so that's why I did. And I learned a lot of information. Sammy?
How long did the empire last? The Aztec Empire.
So it lasted from the 20th century all the way to the 16th century. If you want to get years, so like 1111 all the way to the 1521.
So did like the weather ever become good, or like when they sacrificed?
Yeah, in the 1453 when the weather finally got good, that's when they thought that they were better. But they still did sacrifices like on occasion because they needed to please the gods. Yeah.
Like, what's the current site of where that capital is?
It's like in the valley of Mexico, so in like central Mexico. Alright, thanks guys. I really appreciate all your questions. Are any more questions?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, great.
So,
Awesome. I really appreciate everything.